So we're looking at Moses right now, and last week we were looking at him, and we left him kind of hanging, at the edge of the burning bush, and God was talking with him. Told him, hey, don't come any closer. Take off your sandals because the ground you are standing on is holy ground. And God starts telling him about all the things that he sees going on. And then he says to Moses, I want you to lead. And then God says, I will be with you. And that's kind of where we left it last week. And so this week, as we pick things up, we're looking at Moses and his response to that call in his life. Excuses. That's really the title of this message this morning, is excuses. And that's why as I was working on this and preparing, I wanted to share that song with you because it's just kind of a funny song, but yet it's filled with reality. The excuses that people use to not do what God's calling them. The excuses that people use that, help them to avoid going to church. And as I was listening to those, a lot of them I've heard. The one that really kind of sticks out in my mind, and probably because it was the high tenor that sang in the part, but and the preacher didn't even shake my hand. I've had that said, and yeah, it was true that day. It wasn't because I intentionally didn't do it. I waited and waited and waited, and the person was talking with other people, and I got pulled into another conversation, and the person slipped out the door. And later sent me a really not very friendly message, saying they weren't coming back because I didn't shake their hand. Excuses. All that was an excuse for them not to come back to some place they didn't want to be in the first place. This morning, we're not talking about just coming to church. We're going to take it a little bit deeper into the aspect of what is God calling me to? We're all called to be followers of Jesus Christ, and in that we become more like Him in every single day. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes in that, God places other specific calls on people. Sometimes He's calling somebody to be a pastor or a missionary or a nursery worker or a church custodian, or simply going to your work every single day, being the best employee you possibly can. That means the attitudes are different because they're God-like and not like what I want. Excuses. We use them every single day. Sometimes we use them as a way of getting out of something we don't want to do. Other times we use them to do something we want. And I'm not saying all excuses are bad. A lot of times they're very legitimate things that, come up or we need to do. But this morning what we're looking at is excuses that the devil gives us to avoid doing what God is calling us to. Moses used a few different ones trying to get out of being that man that God had called him. And this morning we're going to be picking up the story of Moses in Exodus chapter 4. And we're going to be reading the first 17 verses. And if you haven't already done this, I want to encourage you to just spend some time reading through the book of Exodus. Because there's no way we can hit every single part of it through Sunday morning service. And there's some stuff that we're going to have to kind of skip over just to... But when we read this, there's a lot of things that we're going to see. One, we're going to see God's love for people. God's love for people who constantly have turned their back on Him. And yet He still shows that love. And how even in the midst of so-called following God and trying to keep focus on Him, people make bad choices. And how God brings them back. If you stand with me this morning as we read God's Word, Exodus chapter 4. And as we're reading through this, kind of look at the arguments that Moses proposes. Moses answered, "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say that the Lord did not appear to you?" And the Lord said to him, "What is in your hand?" "A staff," he replied. The Lord said, "Throw it down on the ground." Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake, and it turned back into the staff in his hand. "This," said the Lord, "is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." Then the Lord said, "Put your hand inside your cloak." So Moses put his hand in his cloak, and when he took it out, the skin was leprous. It became white as snow. "Now put it back in your cloak," he said. And so Moses put it back, his hand back into his cloak. And when he took it out, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. Then the Lord said, "If they do not believe or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second. But if they do not believe these two signs or listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground. The water you take from the river will become blood on the ground." Moses said to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them signs or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I tell you, speak, and will teach you what to say." But Moses said, "Pardon your servant, Lord. Please send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "What about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will keep both of you. I will help both of you speak and teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and he will speak to the people for you. And it will be as if you were my mouth, and as if you were God to him. Take the staff in your hand so that you can perform the signs." Lord, I pray that as we look at this passage of Scripture this morning, and we look at these different excuses that Moses used, and Lord, that you would open our eyes to the excuses that we use in this very day, of reasons why we don't need to, or we shouldn't have to, or we can't follow you, or do what it is you call us to. Pray that you would just speak to our hearts. Maybe see excuses. You know, Moses came up with a couple of different excuses in there, and you think about it, they're legitimate, right? But hey, you know, the people know who I am. They know my backstory. Why would they believe me? Why? The first question she says is, what if? What if I go and they don't believe? When God called me, I didn't really wrestle with it in that aspect because I'd already come to a point in my life of total surrender. But just because I didn't wrestle with it doesn't mean the questions weren't there. It just means that I very quickly turned it over to the Lord. But those questions still came. What if, God, I hate people. I don't like people. I don't want to be with people. And I just want to be the person over here in the background. That's where I was. And yet God called me to be a preacher. And I say, I hate people. It's not like I just hated them. I just didn't want to be part of them. I wanted to be off somewhere on my own. But that's something God changed in my life. And He's given me such a love for people that I can't hide it. He changed me. He changed me from the inside out, because that was what I was filled with, was I just want to be off by myself. What if? What if? Moses says, well, what if they don't believe me? And God says, well, okay, here's these 3 signs that you can perform so that they will believe me. God didn't give me any signs, but He changed my heart and filled me with love. What if? Maybe you're sitting here today and you know that God's speaking to you. That God is calling you into something more than what you have been doing, and you're just filled with these questions. But what if, what if God calls me to take my family and go somewhere else? What if I have to go back to school? Ugh. Just in case you haven't picked up on it, I hated school. When I got out of high school, I went to Ionia Nazarene University and flunked out because of I was more interested in playing cards and chasing girls than I was in school. And that was in 1989-90. It was 2004 when I finally went back to school. Did I love it? Did I struggle with it? You better believe it. Did I succeed? Yeah. But it wasn't. It was God helping me. It was my wife helping me. And believe it or not, the same guy that flunked out at Ionia Nazarene University, I didn't flunk every class, but there wasn't very many credits to transfer. I graduated with a 3.48. I misscored by 0.2. That's what God can do in our lives. When we finally get to the point of saying, I'm done asking the what if, and I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go wherever it is God wants me to go. I'm going to do whatever it is God wants me to do. I'm going to be that person that God is calling me to be. The next thing that Moses does is, but God, I can't talk. I can't go out there. I can't be in front of people and talk. And you know what? That's real. I was talking with Sarah and Aaron last night about how most generally when I get up to preach, I don't have any kind of butterflies. I'm not nervous about it at all anymore, really. I've been doing it 10 years to kind of get to where it doesn't affect you the same way. But there's times that I still get nervous. And even as we were talking last night, I was sharing with them about having to share my pastor's report tomorrow, and there's going to be a whole lot more people there than there is here. And I'm already starting to feel that little anxiety coming on, and yet it's only 30 seconds. I've learned that, I can do it. But it's not me. It's not who I want to be. I don't want to be the one up in front. I don't want to be. But when God gets a hold of us, and it takes me out of the center and Him into the center, that's when things change. Because it's not about me. It's not about what I want or my buts. And I can't do this because but. It's about God. Total surrender. And letting Him be the one who is guiding. Moses, he says, but I'm slow of speech. I can't talk. I can't do it. But you see how God takes that and rebukes him. God, Moses is saying, but I'm so... God says, but who created man's mouth? Who put the words in man's mouth? Go back to what God said to Moses in chapter 3, verse 12. I will be with you. See, that promise is still for us. When we are doing what God has called us to do, He's with us. He's not just saying, okay, Ron, I'm calling you to go out into Ionia and you're all on your own, you go figure it out. No. God has called us here. But He's not just pushed us out into it on our own. He's with us. He's helping us every step of the way. But we're good at making up excuses. We're good at running from that call. And not surrendering our lives to God because we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know where it is He's going to ask us to go or what He's going to ask us to do. But for a lot of us, we come to a point where something happens. And it shakes us to the core. And it's at that point when we really surrender. As I shared last week, when I was sharing my testimony, for me, the thing that shook me to the core the most was when my mom came in my room and I was drunk. And I just puked everywhere. And she told me that she promised God she wasn't cleaning up after her drunken husband, and she surely wasn't going to clean up after her drunken son. That didn't faze me. But what fazed me is when she turned her back and she was leaving my bedroom. She said, Ron, I'm so disappointed. Those were the words that cut me deep. And as I look back at it, I can see those are the words that were the hinging words in my life that started me down. This morning, I don't know where you're all at. I don't know what God is doing in your lives. Some of you I do. I don't know, but what sitting here this morning, there's people that have a call on their life and they're just fighting like crazy. Not willing to surrender. This morning I've asked a friend of mine to come and share it. And share what God is doing in His life. In His life.
So what do you want me to say? What? You tell me.
What's happened to change?
I guess it started a few months ago when I about died at work. Maybe it could be a little bit dramatic, maybe not. A chunk of steel came through the windshield of my loader. A few more inches, it could have impaled me. And I started thinking about a lot of things. About the way I've been, the person I was, the father I was, the son I was, the brother I was. It didn't sit right, because it wasn't right. I've got kids, and they're going through a lot themselves. And I realized I need to be more of an example and more strong for them. Because they're just starting out. And they have no idea the hell that's coming their way if they don't stop. But I do, and it's not fun. I've always been rebellious as a teenager growing up, sex, drugs, rock and roll, that type of thing. Not caring what people thought. I kind of really still don't, although I kind of do. But sometimes you have to. And I still don't like people.
That's why we're friends.
And I still don't want to have to do any of this. A couple weeks after that happened, I gave my life to God. I didn't know what else to do. Never had the want to before. I still don't. But at least I've got the willingness. I never wanted to be this guy. Not interested in telling anything. Don't see the point. I guess there's a lot in my life that I could have done different, would have led a different way, but I'm here for whatever reason. Now I'm just going to do what I have to do and do it the best I can do and see what happens. Been to jail a few times. It's not fun. Been down the drug and alcohol road. That's kind of fun. Gotta admit, that is kind of fun. Sitting along a riverbank smoking a fat joint, that's okay, but, you know, not anymore. It's all about perspective. You can't. Once you get to that place, you'll know. It seems okay now, but it's not. Been married. It's my third marriage. It was almost the end of my third marriage. But I've got parents that have been married, I don't know how long, 40 some years. That's what I've always wanted. I don't know why. 15 years, but nothing but a headache. But we got through it together. And she's amazing. And I almost lost her. Because of the drugs, because of the attitude. Because of all the hatred and anger that I was feeling about everything in life. About everybody in life. But I didn't want to lose the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's been right there the whole time. No matter how bad I got. Always making excuses for me when she didn't have to. Trying to fix things that I screwed up. But it's my turn to fix things now. I've had to stay with my parents for a few months. Well, it felt like a few months. It felt like a year. But watching my dad very rarely see him get mad, throw stuff. Never see that. Just does it quietly. Does whatever he has to do because he loves my mama. Can't imagine where I'd be in my married life now if I'd have done that the whole time. So anyway, give it to God, don't do drugs, stay in school.
My question for you is what's next?
I'm, like Forrest Gump says, I gotta pee.
Jared, I have one question.
Jared.
I know you want to get out there. But is there one main excuse that you fought when you said that you were rebellious? To me, it's like, I was always like, not me. Like Moses said, who am I? Not me. So is there one excuse that really?
I don't want his job. I don't want to know people's problems. I can't solve them. It's not. No.
That's what we got. Yes, thank you, Jerry. And 6 years ago, I met Jerry, 6.5 years ago. And at that time, they were still having problems with their marriage. They were having, all these problems. Jerry went with me to work at my mom's house. We were remodeling the basement. And Jerry and I spent the better part of 2 weeks together. Becca could call him and, what are you doing? Oh, we're shooting bows in the basement. The basement of my dad and my mom's house was from here to the wall. We were still shooting bows. We only destroyed, a half dozen arrows or so because we hit the wall. But in that time, I got to know Jerry and some of the excuses that he was using and the reason. Jerry's going to call me. And I knew that 6 years ago. A couple of weeks ago, we were sitting in my office, and he said, hey, I know, and I'm willing to do what God is calling me to do. Even if it means doing something I don't. That's what happens when somebody gets serious about the relationship with the Lord. And, for a lot of you guys, you just are meeting Jerry. You don't know him very well, but for his family, they've seen him live this life for a long time. And they can see a huge difference. So my question today is for all of us. Are we serious? Are we really serious about this relationship with God? To the point of saying, I would do whatever it is you want me to do, even if it's not what I want. Those of you that know Jerry, this was a big step for him coming up here this morning. And it took a little bit of coaxing and encouraging. And I promised him yesterday, we were sitting at breakfast, we were talking about this, and I promised him I wouldn't just leave him. I'd stand right beside him. But that's what God's saying to us too. When we say yes and we're going to do what He's asking us to do, He's there with us. Just like I was standing right beside Jerry, giving him that support. God is the one leading us and guiding us, and there with us, protecting us and helping us to stay straight on that path. So this morning, I have to ask, is there somebody here today that God is calling you in a specific direction and you've been just using every single excuse possible? But, they don't hold water. If you're serious about your relationship with God, none of the excuses we come up with can keep us from doing what He's calling us to. This morning as we prepare to close, Rick, do you still have the song from last week, I Surrender All? We're just going to have a time of prayer. And If God's been speaking to you this morning, maybe it's good that we don't have anything, because sometimes we can use that as a distraction. If God's been speaking to you this morning and you know that He's placing a call in your life and you've just been fighting it with everything you have, running the opposite direction as hard as you can, I want to encourage you this morning. Come and join me at the altar. Lord, this morning I believe that you are at work. I believe that you are calling people to surrender our will, to pursue you with our everything, our all. Lord, I know we're good at coming up with excuses. We're good at figuring out ways to avoid what you are asking us. Lord, I pray that today would be that day where we just lay it all on the altar. We give it to you and let you be in control. Lord, please speak to us. God's speaking to